Hey everyone, welcome to Professor Long's Lectures in Anatomy and Physiology. I'm Professor Bob Long. Today's video we're going to be continuing our learning of the vascular system. In the previous lesson I did a drawing of blood flow from the heart to the brain, and we drew a little stick roadmap using red and blue markers, actually red markers since it was only the arteries. This is our wire man. Eventually we're going to get to the model in some of these videos and we're going to see the actual vessels here. I did want to point something out to you rather briefly. Let me slide this over a little bit, a little closer to me. And I want to show you a couple of landmarks on the model just to help us get oriented from the last video into this video. From our heart, we have the superior vena cava here, and we have this large red vessel called the aorta. The aorta actually arches back and to the left a little bit. So I'm going to turn our model to the right, and you can kind of see this aortic arch and the descending part of the thoracic aorta. If I turn him back for just a second, let me slide him over a little bit more because the board that I have him on, I don't want him to fall. These are expensive, really expensive for some cheap wire. But nonetheless, you see the liver here is a very large organ, and this blue membrane sitting on top of the liver is actually a muscle called the diaphragm. And so that's our border between the thoracic aorta and the abdominal aorta. And if I turn the model fully sideways, you can see how the aorta arches back and to the left and then comes down as the thoracic aorta, and about where it would hit the diaphragm here becomes the abdominal aorta, and the abdominal aorta would continue down until it splits and ends. A lot of times a vessel will be named one thing on one side of a landmark and then the name changes. And that's what happens with the aorta. It's the thoracic aorta till it hits the diaphragm, becomes the abdominal aorta. It's really the same vessel. Anyway, I'm going to push Wireman out of the way because he is not our focus at this time. I really truly believe that the best way for you to learn this stuff is for you to learn to draw it from memory. If you could do what I'm doing, I don't have any props in the background or screens. I'm drawing all this from memory the way that I learned it as a student so that you can make the highest grade possible and carry this knowledge forward into the next level of your coursework. So, as we do these vessels, I'm going to draw the stick map using red for arteries, blue for veins. If you recall from the previous video, arteries are red because they carry oxygenated blood. Veins are blue because they carry deoxygenated blood, except for the pulmonaries. The pulmonary artery is blue, the pulmonary vein is red. Arteries are red, veins are blue, except for the pulmonaries. They're reversed. Okay? If you know that, then anytime you see red on the Wireman or on the board, you know it's an artery. If you see blue on the Wireman or on the board, it's a vein. The only time it changes is when we get to the lungs. Pulmonary arteries are blue, pulmonary veins are red. Okay, arteries are red, veins are blue, except for pulmonaries. Now, because we're going to be tracing a drop of blood now from the heart to the hand, I'm going to draw the heart a little bit higher up here so that I have room to draw this long arm out so we can see all the various branches. And then I'm going to write my key over here so that you guys can follow along and pause the video and try to make sense of it. Look at the drawings in the Wireman coloring diagram that you should be able to find online, or at least it's in my class. And you should be able to follow along and find all these vessels. If you could take a red marker or a red pencil and draw this out, you're going to make the highest grade on the test when it comes to the arteries and veins. Now we're going to look at them on Wireman and test you there, but this is the way to learn it and then apply it to Wireman. All right, so I'm going to draw the heart high up on the board here. Let me step away and make sure it's still within the view of my screen. Absolutely. So I'm going to draw the large vessel that comes out of the heart, goes back and to the left a little bit as our aorta. I'm not going to name all the various branches or subcategories or subregions of the aorta. We're just going to label this vessel number 1 all the way down. We're always going to start at the heart and always go down the aorta. Like if you started at your house and you went down Main Street, then you could name every left turn or every right turn or every street that crosses the main street as you drew a map for someone. And that's what we're literally doing right here. Now the first branch, as we come out of the heart, remember the first branches off the aorta are actually inside the heart and come through the wall and on the front of the heart called the coronary arteries, the right and left coronary. We covered those when we did the heart model. The next branch comes off over here is called the brachiocephalic. And I'm just going to put BC on there because we've already learned it on another model. I don't want to put it in our numbering scheme. And then this branch coming up here would be the left common carotid. I'm just going to put an L with a circle around it for left, and then CC. And it's really hard to read that, so let me erase this and make it a little bit bigger and easier to see. Left common carotid artery. Okay, we've named those in a previous video. I'm not going to worry about them. The third branch that comes over here would be one that goes out underneath your clavicle, and on this key, that's going to be my number 2. So number 2 and this key is going to be my left subclavian artery, because it runs right underneath the left clavicle towards our armpit. Now there's a bunch of smaller vessels that come off, and where there's a couple of vessels, it helps us identify where the name changes from left subclavian to the axillary artery. For my class, for lower levels of A&P, some of these vessels are not on your list of things to know, or else we could spend, 2 weeks studying just the vessels in the arm. There's so many smaller branches. But there is a branch that comes off here and would run underneath your clavicle called the subclavian artery. Underneath the scapula called the subscapular artery. And then this continues, and then there's going to be a little loop that comes off and would go around the humerus called the circumflex humeral artery. We don't have to learn those two on our list, but they are kind of important in knowing where the subclavian changes names and runs through your armpit. And it's between those two that the name changes. So from here to here, it's going to become the left axillary artery. I also want you to remember that if I put right or left, that means there's another one on the other side of the body. So if there's a left subclavian, there's a right subclavian. If there's a left axillary, there's a right axillary. We're just not going to see them on our drawing. There's only one aorta, so we don't put right or left. If I include right or left, there's 2, one on each side. If I don't include right or left, there's only 1. Now, the axillary artery continues down. After this branch, it will continue down for quite a distance here, and it will run along your humerus. And so, all of this branch is called the left brachial artery. And I'm abbreviating A for artery because I don't want to write it out every time. So, I have the left subclavian. Between these two branches is the left axillary, and then the left subclavian. And actually for my students, when I teach this class, on our wireman, there's either usually a yellow or blue or black. They put a little zip tie on here, and that zip tie is going to represent where the axillary is because we don't learn these two, but they're there. Now, we're really on the same vessel, it just keeps changing names. Left subclavian, left axillary, left brachial. When we get down to the end of the brachial artery, it's going to split. And you have to remember, in correct anatomical position, your thumbs are always going to be lateral. And on the thumb side of your forearm is the radius. So you thumb a ride on your radius, and if you smell your pinky, you go P-U, pinky ulna. Thumb a ride on your radius, pinky ulna. That's how you remember the bones here. And that's going to give us the names of the vessels. So if I follow the left brachial artery down, it's going to split. And one's going to go off to the thumb, and the other's going to go off this side, and they're actually going to kind of meet and then have all these branches that go off to the digits, your fingers, okay? So, index, middle, ring, there you go. So, when the brachial artery ends, it's going to split into these two, and I numbered that wrong. The one that's going to go on the outside is going to be called the left radial artery. And that's where you check someone's pulse. When you check someone's pulse, you're feeling the radial artery. And you never want to check the pulse with your thumb, by the way, because the artery that's in your thumb, you can sometimes feel it throbbing. And when you're checking a pulse with your thumb, you don't know if you're feeling the thumb or you're feeling their radial artery. So you always use these two fingers. You lay them on there very lightly, and you can feel as blood pumps through pushing off on your fingers. So that would be the radial artery, okay? And then over here on this side would be the left ulnar artery. So learning your anatomy of the bones in part 1 and your body regions is going to help us learn all of these vessels. Now the radial and the ulnar arteries will come down and they're going to meet right down here, and that is called the left palmar arch and palmar arch. And we're not going to put artery, we're going to put palmar arch. It is an artery. And then these vessels that come off here from the thumb and all your fingers are going to be called the left digital arteries. Okay? And every time I put the left, there would be the exact same equivalent on the right. Where the brachiocephalic is, we'd have the left subclavian, left axillary, left brachial, left radial, and ulnar. The radial is always lateral, the ulnar is always medial, in correct anatomical position. You'd have right subclavian, right axillary, right brachial, right radial, right ulnar, the right palmar arch, and the right digital arteries. We've only drawn out the left side, okay? So I hope you have all this down. If not, you need to pause the video, draw it, make your list, but those are the vessels that carry blood from the heart to the digits. You leave the left ventricle out the aorta, you go out the aortic arch to the left subclavian artery, left axillary, left brachial, left radial, left ulnar, left palmar arch, and the left digital arteries, okay? Now I'm going to erase all of this, and I'm actually going to wheel the wireman in and try to show you this on the wireman in this video so that it's all done together. I didn't do that when we did the head because it was a long video to get started. But let me erase all my vessels here. Or actually, I'm just going to erase the list. And I think I can move wireman over here so that we can see everything next to each other. Let me see how this appears on my video. And I may not do this. Again, I'm doing all these videos in a one-shot thing. Yeah, I need to zoom in. So I apologize for confusing you. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a video where I can just zoom in on the wireman and we can get really close up. I'm not going to do that now. So we're done with this set. What we're going to do next is we're going to follow the abdominal aorta down, and we're going to do the vessels that go to the abdomen in a similar fashion. So thanks for watching. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I hope you have fun learning the arteries. I think it's pretty cool stuff. And I'll see you on the flip side in the next video.